Hey everyone, we have a treat for you today. We are talking about broadcast cameras and DSLRs. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between these two kinds of cameras. I've heard many comments over the past couple of years saying, why would people use those giant cameras? They're so big and bulky and you can do everything with a DSLR. Honestly, there are pros and cons with both cameras, and there's certain jobs that are better to be done with each one. So we're going to go a little bit into the details of what the differences between these are. So we have this broadcast camera here thanks to our friends at Metro Media Broadcasting. I've used this kind of camera for things like live streams, live shows, people use it for sports, and one of the biggest draws from this camera is it has a motorized zoom, which is over here on the front of the lens. Because a DSLR doesn't have this, sometimes it's really shaky if you zoom in manually like this, because you're actually moving the camera by moving the lens. One of the biggest draws with these broadcast cameras is the fact that there are so many different kinds of inputs. So you can be doing SDI, timecode, XLR, obviously your headphones, but the biggest thing is over here you are able to control your audio levels without actually going into any menus like you would have to onto a DSLR. So if someone's speaking a little too loud, a little too soft, you're able to just adjust that on the side of the camera while you're kind of running and gunning or while you're shooting the show. In addition to the audio controls, there are a lot of other buttons for things that you would have to typically go through the menus on a DSLR to find, such as white balance, zebra lines so that you know that you're not overexposing things, and there are actually multiple recording buttons. So if you notice, the lenses on these two kinds of cameras look very different. This is a parfocal lens and this is not. What parfocal is it gives you the ability to zoom in on your subject, grab your focus and zoom back out, and it'll still hold the focus. That happens because there's a lot more modules inside of that lens than one for a DSLR. If you try and do that with a DSLR, once you're zoomed all the way in, it might be in focus, but the further you pull out, it might go out of focus and it might get all fuzzy on you. So the reason that cameras like this are used by broadcast networks and news organizations is because all of the things that you would need is cohesively put together into one unit, so that's why they're able to run off the trucks and get their shot. If you notice, they have a shotgun mic, they have a viewfinder, so if it's sunny out, they can still see what's happening. And there's a knob over here for ND filters, which you typically have to buy and put onto the front of your lens on a DSLR. Most obviously, these cameras are built to be put on your shoulders. There's actually space under here and padding so that you can put it on your shoulders and go and shoot. But for DSLR, if you're going to do shoulder shooting like you would with a broadcast camera, you would have to get some sort of rig that is external and you put your camera on it. So it's a little bit more involved to do it with a DSLR. So now we're going to shift gears and talk a little bit about the DSLRs. The DSLRs are compact and gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of movement of the camera. You can move it around handheld, you can put it onto a stabilizer, you can do fancy shots where you follow action as it's moving. It gives you a lot more range of motion as well as the ability to do a lot more stylized videography. The interesting thing about DSLRs is you can buy it with a variety of sensor sizes, whether it's like this one, which is 4/3, or with full frame, Super 35, or different crop sensors depending on the brand. Those are all going to look very different than something like this Panasonic broadcast camera that has a 2/3 frame. In terms of the memory for these two cameras, you can use SD cards for the DSLR, which you can get a good one for 20, 30 bucks. But if you're going to write something on the broadcast camera, you need a P2 card, which could be about, I don't know, $600? A little different, so you gotta figure out what's better for you. So with all of the details that I've shared with you, you kind of need to figure out what's going to be best for the job that you're doing. For instance, if I'm going to shoot in a small office in Manhattan, I'm gonna bring a DSLR rather than a broadcast camera because I don't have the physical room to move around. Or if I'm doing something like a live event or a kids show on stage, I might opt for the broadcast camera because I can get closer without having to fix the focus or stop the camera. So these are some of the differences between DSLRs and broadcast cameras. I hope that this clears it up a little bit for you guys, and let me know what you use down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Here at Celia Warner Productions, we're making all kinds of content about cameras, lighting, audio, and everything that goes along with the photo and video industry. Make sure to follow me on Instagram for even more tips, behind the scenes, and to keep up with all the different kinds of projects that we're doing. Subscribe here on YouTube so that you can learn all about the different topics that we have to speak about. And make sure to leave comments below with questions and video ideas, because maybe we will make a video to teach you about what you want to know.